I remember the exact moment my life divided into before and after. It was a Thursday morning in late September, the kind of day where the air smells like dying leaves and coffee shops start pushing pumpkin spice everything. I was standing in my kitchen, wearing the same yoga pants I'd worn for 3 days straight, staring at a sink full of dishes I couldn't bring myself to wash. The furnace had been making weird noises for a week, groaning and rattling like something was dying down there in the basement, and I'd finally called someone to fix it. My name is Jessica, and if you'd asked me 6 months earlier how my life was going, I would have given you the standard answer. Fine. Everything's fine. My husband Mark and I had been married for 12 years. We had 2 kids, Emma, who was 10, and Ryan, who was 8. We lived in a nice house in the suburbs with a 2-car garage and a backyard with a swing set that nobody used anymore. On paper, everything looked perfect. But paper doesn't show you the truth, does it? The truth was that Mark had been distant for months. Not in the dramatic way you see in movies, where there's screaming and throwing things. It was quieter than that, more insidious. He'd come home from work later and later, always with reasonable explanations. Big project, traffic, stopped for groceries. He'd sit at dinner and his eyes would be somewhere else, somewhere I couldn't reach. When I tried to talk to him about it, he'd look at me like I was being paranoid. Jessica. Mark, can we talk? You seem so far away lately. Mark. I'm just stressed about work, Jess. You're reading into things. But I wasn't reading into things. I could feel something crumbling. The way you can feel a tooth starting to rot from the inside before it finally breaks. I just didn't know what to do about it. So I did what I always did. I kept going, made lunches, did laundry, helped with homework, smiled at the school pickup line, pretended everything was fine. The kids had been different too, especially Emma. She'd always been my chatty girl, the one who'd tell me every detail about her day, who her friends were mad at, what happened at lunch, everything. But lately, she'd become quiet. She'd come home from school and go straight to her room. Ryan followed her lead like he always did. They'd become these little shadows slipping through the house without making noise. Jessica. Emma, honey, how was school today? Emma. Fine. Jessica. Just fine? Anything interesting happen? Emma. Not really. Can I go upstairs? That was it. That was all I could get out of her. And when I tried to press, she'd get this look on her face, this closed-off expression that reminded me so much of Mark that it made my chest hurt. I tried talking to Mark about it, but he brushed me off. Mark. They're just getting older, Jess. Kids go through phases. Stop hovering. Stop hovering. Like caring about my children was somehow wrong. Like noticing when something was off made me the problem. That Thursday morning, I'd woken up at 6, made breakfast that nobody ate, and driven the kids to school in silence. Emma stared out the window the whole time. Ryan played some game on his tablet. Neither of them said a word. When I dropped them off, Emma didn't even say goodbye. Just grabbed her backpack and walked away, her shoulders hunched like she was carrying something heavy. I drove home through streets I'd driven down 1,000 times, past houses where I'd never been invited inside, past neighbors whose names I couldn't remember. I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. The repairman was supposed to come at 9. His name was Tom, and he'd been recommended by my neighbor Patricia, who seemed to know everyone who did anything in this town. I'd called his company the day before, explained about the furnace noises, and the dispatcher had fit me in for a morning appointment. When I got home, I tried to do something productive. I put in a load of laundry. I answered some emails. I looked at the dishes in the sink and felt overwhelmed by the simple task of washing them. Everything felt heavy, like I was moving through water. The doorbell rang at exactly 9. I appreciate punctuality, so that was a good start. I opened the door to find a man in his 50s, wearing work clothes and carrying a toolbox. He had kind eyes, the sort that crinkle at the corners when he smiles. Tom. Mrs. Anderson? I'm Tom from Reliable Home Repairs. Hear about your furnace. Jessica. Yes, thank you for coming. It's been making these awful sounds, like grinding or rattling. I don't know much about furnaces, but it doesn't sound right. Tom. I'll take a look. Basement access through the kitchen? Jessica. Yes, the door's right over there. Let me show you. I led him through the house, suddenly conscious of the mess, the dishes, the scattered mail on the counter, the kids' backpacks still on the floor from the day before. He didn't seem to notice or care. He just nodded, opened the basement door, and headed down the stairs with his flashlight and toolbox. I went back to the kitchen, thinking I'd finally tackle those dishes while he worked. I filled the sink with hot water, added soap, and started washing. The mechanical task felt soothing. Wash, rinse, place in the drying rack. Wash, rinse, place in the drying rack. My mind wandered. I thought about Mark, about the way he'd been sleeping on the very edge of our bed lately, like he didn't want to accidentally touch me. I thought about Emma's sad eyes and Ryan's unusual quietness. I thought about how I'd somehow become a stranger in my own family. About 15 minutes passed. I was drying the last plate when I heard Tom's footsteps on the basement stairs. They were fast, urgent. That wasn't normal. Repairmen don't rush. They take their time, they're methodical. But Tom was practically running up those stairs. He burst through the basement door, and the look on his face made my stomach drop. He was pale, his eyes wide, and his hands were shaking. Tom, ma'am, you need to call the police. Right now. Jessica. What? Why? What's wrong? Tom, please, just call them. I found something down there. Your kids, are they at school? Jessica. Yes, I just dropped them off. What did you find? Is it the furnace? Is there a gas leak or something? Tom, it's not the furnace. Ma'am, please call 911. I'll explain everything, but we need the police here. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone from the counter. My mind was racing through possibilities, each one worse than the last. A gas leak, a structural problem, something dangerous that could hurt my kids. I dialed 911 with trembling fingers. Dispatcher. 911? What's your emergency? Jessica. I don't know. The repairman is here and he says I need to call the police. He found something in my basement. Dispatcher. What did he find, ma'am? I looked at Tom, who was standing there with his arms crossed, looking like he was trying to hold himself together. Jessica. What did you find? Tom. There's a space behind the furnace, behind the water heater. Someone's been hiding there. There's blankets, food wrappers, a couple of sleeping bags, and there's children's belongings. A backpack, some clothes, toys. It looks like someone's been living down there. The phone almost slipped from my hand. Children's belongings. In my basement. Someone had been living in my basement. Jessica. He says someone's been living in our basement. There are blankets and children's things. Dispatcher. Are you in a safe location? Is anyone in the house with you besides the repairman? Jessica. I don't know. I don't think so. The house was locked. Dispatcher. I'm sending officers to your location now. Stay on the line with me. Don't go into the basement. The next 20 minutes felt like hours. Tom and I stood in the kitchen, neither of us quite knowing what to say. He kept apologizing, like he'd done something wrong by finding it. I kept trying to understand. Someone in my basement. But how? When? Why? Tom, I'm sorry, I know this is scary, but when I saw those kids' things, I knew we needed to involve the authorities. If someone's been coming in and out, if kids are involved, this could be serious. Jessica, I don't understand. The doors are always locked. I lock them every night. How could someone get in? Tom, I don't know, ma'am, but the police will figure it out. When the police arrived, there were two officers, a woman named Officer Martinez and a man named Officer Chen. They were professional and calm, which somehow made everything feel more real. This wasn't just me overreacting. This was serious enough that they took it seriously. Officer Martinez. Mrs. Anderson, I need you to tell me who has access to your house. Do you have any spare keys? Any service people who come regularly? Jessica. Just my husband and me, and the kids, but they're at school. We have a spare key hidden outside, but nobody knows about it except us. Officer Chen. We're going to search the basement and the rest of the house. I need you to stay here with Tom. They went downstairs with flashlights and radios. I could hear them moving around, calling out to each other. Tom made me sit down at the kitchen table. I realized I was shaking. Tom, try to breathe. The officers will figure this out. Jessica. My kids. Oh God. My kids have been in this house. What if someone was down there when they were home? What if someone was watching them? I felt sick. Actually physically sick. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. When I came back, the officers were emerging from the basement. Officer Martinez had something in her hands, sealed in a clear plastic evidence bag. It was a small purple notebook. Officer Martinez. Mrs. Anderson, do you recognize this? I looked at it. My heart stopped. I knew that notebook. I'd bought it for Emma at the beginning of the school year. She'd picked it out herself, said she wanted it for journaling. Jessica. That's my daughter's. That's Emma's journal. Officer Chen. It was in the space behind the furnace, along with some other items. Mrs. Anderson, I need to ask you some difficult questions. Has Emma mentioned anything unusual lately? Anyone following her? Anyone making her uncomfortable? Jessica. No. I mean, she's been quiet lately, but I thought it was just a phase. She's 10. Preteens get moody, right? Officer Martinez, we found 2 sleeping bags down there, and items belonging to 2 different children based on the sizes. Mrs. Anderson, how old is your son? Jessica, 8. Ryan is 8. What are you saying? Are you saying my kids were hiding in the basement? The officers exchanged a look. Officer Martinez sat down across from me at the table. Officer Martinez, we need to talk to your children. With your permission, we'd like to bring them here from school with a counselor present. Something is happening in this house, and we need to understand what it is. Jessica, you think my kids were hiding from something? From someone? Officer Chen, we don't know yet, but the evidence suggests that children have been spending time in that space, and they've gone to some lengths to keep it hidden. The space is well concealed, set up deliberately. This wasn't kids playing hide and seek. I couldn't breathe. My vision was tunneling. My children had been hiding in the basement, and I hadn't known. What kind of mother doesn't know when her children are hiding? Jessica, yes. Yes, bring them home. We need to figure out what's going on. The next hour was agony. Officer Martinez drove to the school to pick up Emma and Ryan. Officer Chen stayed with me, asking questions I couldn't answer. When had I last been in that part of the basement? Did I keep it locked? Had I noticed food missing from the kitchen? Had the kids been sleeping in their rooms every night? I didn't know. I didn't know anything. I'd been so focused on the surface of our lives, on keeping everything looking normal, that I'd missed what was happening underneath. When Emma and Ryan walked through the door with Officer Martinez and a woman she introduced as Ms. Reeves, a child counselor, Emma's face went white. She looked at the police officers, at me, at Tom, who was still there, and I saw her understand. We'd found it. We'd found their hiding place. Emma, Mom, I can explain. Jessica, Emma, baby, what's going on? Why were you hiding in the basement? She looked at Ryan, who was crying silently, tears streaming down his face. Emma took his hand. Emma, we had to. We didn't know what else to do. Ms. Reeves, the counselor, stepped forward. She had a gentle voice, the kind that makes you feel like maybe it's safe to tell the truth. Ms. Reeves, Emma, Ryan, you're not in trouble. We just want to understand what's been happening. Can we all sit down and talk? We moved to the living room. The kids sat together on the couch, holding hands. I sat across from them, feeling like the distance between us was a canyon. Officer Martinez and Ms. Reeves positioned themselves nearby, present but not threatening. Ms. Reeves, Emma, you said you had to hide. What were you hiding from? Emma looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes that broke my heart. Fear. She was afraid. Of what? Of who? Emma. From Dad. The words hung in the air like smoke. From Dad, from Mark, from their father. Jessica. What do you mean from Dad? Emma, what are you talking about? Emma. Mom, you don't see it. You don't see how he gets. When he's mad, he scares us. And he's been getting mad more and more. Ryan. He yells really loud. And he throws things. Jessica. Your dad doesn't throw things. He's never been violent. But even as I said it, I was remembering. The way Mark had slammed the car door last week. The way he'd thrown his phone onto the couch hard enough to make a sound. The way he'd raised his voice at Emma when she'd spilled milk. I'd written it off as stress, as normal frustration. But maybe it wasn't normal. Maybe it had been escalating, and I'd been too busy trying to keep peace to notice. Emma, he broke my tablet, Mom. 2 weeks ago. I accidentally left it on the stairs, and he stepped on it, but then he picked it up and threw it against the wall. He said I needed to learn to be more careful. And he yells at Ryan for everything. For breathing too loud, for asking questions, for existing. Ryan, I'm scared of him. He makes me feel like everything I do is wrong. I felt like I'd been punched. My children were terrified of their father, and I hadn't known. Or had I known, somewhere deep down, and just refused to see it. Officer Martinez. Emma, has your father ever hit you or your brother? Emma. No. But he gets so angry. His face gets red and his hands shake, and we thought eventually maybe he would. So we made the hiding place. When we hear him coming home and he sounds mad, we go down there. We wait until he calms down or until he's asleep. Sometimes we sleep there all night. Jessica. All night? You've been sleeping in the basement? Emma. Only when it's bad, when he's really angry. We can hear him up here, walking around slamming things. We stay quiet and wait. Ms. Reeves was taking notes. Officer Martinez was watching me carefully. Officer Chen. Mrs. Anderson, were you aware of your husband's anger issues? Jessica. I knew he was stressed. I knew he'd been short-tempered, but I didn't realize it was this bad. I didn't realize the kids were scared, but that was a lie, wasn't it? I had realized. I'd seen Emma flinch when Mark raised his voice. I'd seen Ryan make himself small and quiet when his father was home. I'd just told myself it was nothing, because admitting it was something would mean I'd have to do something about it. Ms. Reeves, Emma, Ryan, you both were very brave to create a safe space for yourselves. But I need you to understand that hiding isn't a long-term solution. We need to make sure you're actually safe in your own home. Emma, are you going to take us away? Ms. Reeves, no, sweetheart. We're going to work with your mom to make sure you're protected, but we need your mom to understand everything that's been happening. Can you tell us more about when your dad gets angry? Over the next hour, my children told stories that shattered me. Mark yelling at Emma for getting a B on a test. Mark telling Ryan he was weak for crying. Mark punching the wall in his office hard enough to leave a dent. Mark grabbing Emma's arm hard enough to leave bruises when she'd talked back to him 3 months ago. 3 months ago. She'd worn long sleeves for a week that summer, and I'd thought it was just a fashion choice. Jessica, Emma, why didn't you tell me about the bruises? Emma, because you always defend him, Mom. You always say he's just stressed. He doesn't mean it. Give him a break. I didn't think you'd believe us. She was right. That's exactly what I would have said. I'd been so invested in maintaining the illusion of our perfect family that I'd made my children feel like they couldn't come to me with the truth. Jessica, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have seen this. I should have protected you. Ryan, are you going to make him leave? The question hung there. Was I? Could I? Mark was my husband. We'd built a life together. But he was scaring our children. He was hurting them, even if he'd never hit them. Emotional abuse is still abuse. Fear is still harm. Jessica, yes. He can't stay here if you don't feel safe. Emma, he's going to be so mad. Officer Martinez, Mrs. Anderson, based on what the children have disclosed, we can help you file for an emergency protective order. Your husband would have to leave the house and couldn't contact you or the children until there's a hearing. We can also connect you with domestic violence resources. Jessica, domestic violence? But he never hit anyone. Officer Chen, domestic violence isn't just physical abuse, ma'am. What your children are describing, the intimidation, the fear, the controlling behavior, that falls under domestic abuse, and grabbing your daughter hard enough to bruise is physical abuse. I started crying then. Big, ugly sobs that I couldn't control. My daughter came over and hugged me, and I realized the roles had reversed. She was comforting me when I should have been protecting her. Emma, it's okay, Mom. We'll be okay. Jessica, no, it's not okay. None of this is okay. I'm supposed to keep you safe, and I failed. Ms. Reeves, Jessica, beating yourself up right now isn't helpful. What's important is what you do next. Your children need you to be strong now, to make the hard decisions. She was right. I wiped my face and looked at Officer Martinez. Jessica, tell me what I need to do. Whatever it takes to keep them safe, I'll do it. That afternoon was a blur of paperwork and phone calls. Officer Martinez helped me file for an emergency protective order. I called my sister Rachel, who lived 2 hours away, and told her everything. She was furious at Mark, furious that I hadn't told her sooner, but mostly she was supportive. She said she'd come stay with us for a few days. The hardest part was calling Mark. I had to tell him not to come home, that there was a protective order being filed, that he needed to find somewhere else to stay. He was at work when I called. Mark, Jess? What's wrong? Why are you calling me? I'm in the middle of something. Jessica, you need to find somewhere else to stay tonight. Don't come home. Mark, what? What are you talking about? Is this a joke? Jessica, the police are here. The kids told them everything, Mark, about the yelling, the anger, the bruises. You scared our children so badly that they've been hiding in the basement. Mark, that's ridiculous. I never hurt them. They're being dramatic. And you're believing this? You're choosing them over me? Jessica, they're our children, Mark. There's no choosing. They're terrified of you. Emma had bruises. You broke her tablet. You've been getting worse and worse, and I kept making excuses for you. But I'm done. You're not coming home until you get help. Mark, this is insane. You're being manipulated by hysterical children. I work my ass off for this family, and this is what I get? You know what? Fine. I'll stay somewhere else. But when you realize you're ruining our family over nothing, don't come crying to me. He hung up. I stood there holding the phone, shaking. Officer Martinez put a hand on my shoulder. Officer Martinez, that wasn't easy. You did the right thing. Jessica, it doesn't feel right. It feels like everything's falling apart. Officer Chen. Things were already falling apart, Mrs. Anderson. You're just finally seeing it clearly. That night, Rachel arrived with grocery bags full of comfort food and a fierce determination to help. The kids were quiet at dinner, picking at their food. We'd ordered pizza because cooking felt impossible. After dinner, Rachel took Ryan upstairs for a bath while I sat with Emma in her room. Emma, are you really going to make him stay away? Jessica, yes, I promise. You and Ryan are my priority. I'm sorry I didn't see what was happening sooner. Emma, I'm sorry we didn't tell you. We thought maybe we were wrong, like maybe we were being too sensitive like Dad always said. Jessica, you weren't wrong. You were protecting yourselves because I wasn't doing my job. That's on me, not you. Emma, what's going to happen now? Jessica, I don't know exactly. There's going to be a court hearing. Your dad will have to stay away unless the judge says otherwise. We might have to talk to more counselors, answer more questions. It's going to be hard for a while, but we're going to be okay. We're going to be safe. Emma, do you still love him? The question caught me off guard. Did I still love Mark? I'd loved who I thought he was, who he'd been when we first met. But that person had changed, or maybe he'd always been this way and I'd just been blind to it. Love isn't enough when someone makes you afraid. Love isn't enough when your children hide in the basement. Jessica, I don't know. Right now I'm just angry and hurt. But what I do know is that I love you and your brother more than anything, and keeping you safe is more important than any other relationship. Emma, I'm glad you believe us. I was so scared you wouldn't. Jessica, I'm sorry I ever gave you reason to think that. From now on, you can tell me anything, and I'll listen. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed, alone for the first time in 12 years, and thought about all the signs I'd missed. The way Mark had isolated us from friends and family, always having reasons why we couldn't visit my parents or sister. The way he'd criticized me constantly, little comments about my weight, my cooking, my intelligence. The way I'd started second-guessing myself about everything. It hadn't started with the kids. It had started with me. I'd just been the frog in the boiling water, not noticing as the temperature rose degree by degree. The next few weeks were brutal. Mark contested the protective order, claiming I was alienating the children, that they were lying, that I was having some kind of breakdown. The first court date was scheduled for 2 weeks after the emergency order was issued. Those 2 weeks felt like walking through fog. Everything seemed surreal, disconnected from reality. I had to hire a lawyer. I'd never hired a lawyer before, never imagined I'd need one. Her name was Diana Park, and she came highly recommended by the Domestic Violence Advocacy Center Officer Martinez had connected me with. Diana was in her 40s, sharp-eyed and compassionate in equal measure. Diana, Jessica, I need you to understand something. This is going to get worse before it gets better. Mark is going to fight this hard. Men like him, they don't like losing control. He's going to say whatever he needs to say to make himself look good and you look bad. Jessica, but the kids told the truth. They showed the police everything. Diana, I know, and we have strong evidence, but you need to be prepared for him to twist everything. He'll say the kids are confused, that you coached them, that you're vindictive because of marital problems. You need to stay strong and stay consistent. Jessica, I can do that. I have to do that. The Advocacy Center also connected me with a support group for survivors of domestic abuse. I resisted the label at first. Survivor. It felt too dramatic, too victimized. Mark had never hit me. He'd never hit the kids. But the facilitator of the group, a woman named Patricia who'd been through her own hell, helped me understand. Patricia, abuse isn't just physical, Jessica. It's any pattern of behavior that makes you feel afraid, that makes you doubt yourself, that makes you walk on eggshells in your own home. From what you've described, you and your children have been living with emotional and psychological abuse for years. Jessica, I just feel stupid, like I should have known sooner, like I should have been stronger. Patricia, that's exactly what abusers count on. They break you down so slowly that you don't realize it's happening. You blame yourself instead of them. But you did know, on some level. That's why you were always so anxious, always trying to keep peace. Your body knew even when your mind was in denial. Sitting in that circle of women, hearing their stories, I started to see patterns. The isolation, the constant criticism disguised as concern, the way Mark had made me doubt my own perceptions. One woman, Linda, had been married for 20 years before she left. Her husband had never hit her either, but he'd controlled every aspect of her life. What she wore, who she talked to, how she spent money. She'd believed it was normal. that she was just difficult to please. Linda. The worst part is how long I stayed. My kids were grown before I finally left. I missed so much of their lives being too afraid to upset their father. Jessica. But you got out eventually. That's what matters. Linda. That's what I tell myself. And it's what you need to remember too. You got out while your kids are still young enough to heal fully. You gave them that gift. The support group became a lifeline. These women understood in ways my other friends couldn't. They didn't judge me for staying as long as I did. They didn't ask why I hadn't seen the signs sooner. They just held space for my pain and my anger and my fear. Meanwhile, the kids were in therapy. Ms. Reeves had recommended a child psychologist named Dr. Brennan, who specialized in trauma. Emma went willingly, even eagerly. She wanted to talk about everything, to process it all out loud. Ryan was more reluctant. Ryan, I don't want to talk to a stranger about Dad. Jessica, Dr. Brennan isn't a stranger for long. She's really nice. And she's there just to listen, to help you understand your feelings. Ryan, what if I say the wrong thing? Jessica, there's no wrong thing. Whatever you feel is okay. If you're sad, if you're angry, if you're confused, all of that is normal. Dr. Brennan was patient with Ryan, letting him play while they talked, giving him tools to express what words couldn't capture. She had him draw, use puppets, build with blocks. Slowly, he started opening up. After a few sessions, Dr. Brennan asked to meet with me. Dr. Brennan, Jessica, both of your children are showing signs of complex trauma. The good news is that they're resilient, and with consistent support, they can heal fully. But I need you to understand that this is going to be a long process. Jessica, how long? Dr. Brennan, years, possibly. Trauma doesn't have a timeline. Emma is very verbal about her experiences, which is helpful. But she also has a tendency to minimize what happened to protect you. She feels responsible for your emotional well-being. Ryan is more avoidant. He doesn't want to think about it or talk about it, which is a normal coping mechanism, but can become problematic if it continues long-term. Jessica, what can I do to help them? Dr. Brennan, be consistent, be present. Don't minimize their experiences, but don't catastrophize either. Let them know it's okay to have good days and bad days. And most importantly, take care of yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup. Your kids need you to be strong and healthy. I started my own therapy too. I saw a therapist named Michael who specialized in codependency and trauma. The first session, I cried for 45 minutes straight. Everything I'd been holding in for years just poured out. Michael, Jessica, what you're feeling right now, this overwhelming emotion, this is what happens when you finally stop running. You've been in survival mode for so long that now that you're safe, your body is finally processing everything you suppressed. Jessica, I feel like I'm falling apart. Michael, you're not falling apart. You're breaking open. There's a difference. Falling apart is destruction. Breaking open is transformation. Jessica, it doesn't feel like transformation. It feels like I'm drowning. Michael, that's because you're learning to feel again. You've been numb for so long, protecting yourself from the constant stress. Now you're thawing out, and yes, it's painful, but it's necessary. Over the following weeks, Michael helped me understand my own patterns. How I'd learned as a child to be a peacemaker, to smooth over conflict, to make myself small to avoid upsetting others. My parents had fought constantly when I was young, and I'd learned that if I was good enough, quiet enough, helpful enough, maybe they'd stop. That pattern had followed me into my marriage. Michael, you married someone who needed a peacemaker. Mark needed someone who would absorb his anger, who would make excuses for him, who wouldn't challenge him, and you needed someone who needed you. It was a perfect storm of dysfunctional patterns. Jessica, so I'm just as responsible for what happened? Michael, no, absolutely not. Mark made choices. He chose to be cruel, to intimidate, to abuse. That's on him. But you also made choices. You chose to stay, to minimize, to protect him instead of your children. Understanding why you made those choices doesn't excuse them, but it helps you make different choices going forward. The first court hearing was terrifying. I had to sit in the same room as Mark for the first time since he'd left. He looked smaller somehow, or maybe I was just seeing him differently. Diana sat beside me, a steady presence. Mark's lawyer, a slick man named Gregory Foster, came out swinging. Gregory, Your Honor, my client is a devoted father who has never laid a hand on his children. This entire situation is a fabrication created by a vindictive wife who wants to punish him for working long hours to support his family. The children have been coached, manipulated by their mother, who is clearly having some kind of mental health crisis. Diana stood up, calm and controlled. Diana, Your Honor, we have extensive documentation from the children's school, from their pediatrician, from law enforcement, and from mental health professionals, all indicating that these children have been living in fear. This isn't a case of parental alienation. This is a case of children protecting themselves from an emotionally abusive father. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Richardson, reviewed the documents. Emma and Ryan had already spoken to her in chambers earlier that week. I hadn't been allowed to be there, which had terrified me. What if Emma froze? What if Ryan couldn't find the words? But Diana had assured me that the judge was experienced with these cases, that she'd know how to make the kids comfortable. Judge Richardson, I've reviewed all the evidence submitted by both parties. I've spoken extensively with the minor children. Based on everything I've seen and heard, I'm extending the protective order for 6 months. Mr. Anderson, you are ordered to complete a batterer's intervention program, not just anger management. You will also undergo individual therapy with a licensed professional who specializes in domestic abuse. After 90 days, we'll review your progress and determine if supervised visitation is appropriate. Mark, this is ridiculous. I never touched them. Judge Richardson, Mr. Anderson, domestic abuse is not limited to physical violence. The behaviors described by your children and documented by professionals constitute emotional abuse and intimidation. If you want any chance of rebuilding a relationship with your children, I suggest you take this seriously. Mark stormed out of the courtroom. His lawyer followed, looking less confident than when he'd arrived. Diana squeezed my hand. Diana, that went as well as we could have hoped. The judge sees through his act. Jessica, what happens if he doesn't comply with the order? Diana, then he loses his chance at visitation, and we move forward with the divorce with full documentation of his non-compliance. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt something shift. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I felt like someone with authority had actually heard us, had believed us, had taken us seriously. The system wasn't perfect, but it was working. Rachel was waiting in the parking lot with the kids. She'd taken them out for lunch while the hearing happened. When they saw me, they both ran over. Emma, what happened, Mom? Jessica, the judge extended the protective order. Your dad has to do therapy and classes. You don't have to see him unless you want to, and even then, only with supervision. Ryan, so we're safe? Jessica, yes, baby, we're safe. That night I made spaghetti for dinner, the kids' favorite. We ate at the table together, and for the first time in forever, the silence wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. Ryan told a joke he'd heard at school. Emma laughed so hard milk came out of her nose, which made Ryan laugh harder. I sat there watching them and felt my heart expand with gratitude. After dinner, Emma helped me with dishes while Ryan played in the living room. Emma, Mom, can I ask you something? Jessica, anything. Emma, do you think Dad will actually change? Like, really change? Jessica, I honestly don't know, honey. I hope so, for his sake. But whether he changes or not doesn't affect us anymore. We're building our own life, separate from him. If he does the work and becomes someone safe to be around, maybe someday you'll want to see him. But that's your choice, not mine, not his. Emma, I don't hate him. Is that weird? Jessica, not at all. He's your father. It's normal to have complicated feelings about him. You can be angry at someone and still love them. You can want them to be better even while protecting yourself from who they are now. Emma, that's exactly how I feel. Like I'm mad at him for scaring us. But I also remember when he used to be different, when he used to play with us and be fun. I miss that dad. Jessica, me too. I married that dad. But people change, and not always for the better. The important thing is that we recognize when someone isn't healthy for us to be around, even if we still care about them. Over the following months, we established new routines. I went back to work full-time at a marketing firm. The pay wasn't amazing, but it was stable, and my boss was understanding about the schedule flexibility I needed for court dates and therapy appointments. Rachel had gone back home, but she called every day and visited every other weekend. Money was tight. Going from 2 incomes to 1 was brutal. I had to create a strict budget, cut out all unnecessary expenses. No more eating out, no more impulse purchases, no more pretending everything was fine while the credit card debt piled up. It was humbling, learning to live within my means, learning to say no to the kids when they asked for things we couldn't afford. Ryan, Mom, can I get the new video game everyone at school has? Jessica, not right now, buddy. We need to stick to our budget. Ryan, but everyone else has it. Jessica, I know, and I'm sorry, but we're doing okay on what we have. How about this weekend we have a game tournament with the games you already own? I'll even play with you. Ryan. You're terrible at video games, Mom. Jessica. Exactly, which means you'll definitely win. He laughed and the disappointment faded. He was learning that love doesn't equal material things, that being present is worth more than presence. It was a lesson I wished I didn't have to teach him this way, but maybe it would serve him well later in life. Emma started middle school that fall, which came with its own set of challenges. She was anxious about it, worried about fitting in, worried about people finding out about our situation. We practiced what she'd say if anyone asked about her dad. Emma. What if someone asks why Dad doesn't live with us anymore? Jessica. You can say whatever feels comfortable. You can say your parents are separated. You can say it's private. You can say the truth if you want. There's no wrong answer. Emma. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. Jessica. Then don't tell them anything that would make them feel that way. You get to control your own story, Emma. Nobody is entitled to know your private business. The first few weeks of school were rough. Emma came home stressed, overwhelmed by the social dynamics and increased homework. But she also made a friend, a girl named Sophia, who was new to the school too. They bonded over both being outsiders, both trying to navigate this new environment. Sophia started coming over after school sometimes. The first time Emma asked if she could have a friend over, she was nervous. Emma, is it okay if Sophia comes over Thursday? We have a project to work on. Jessica, of course it's okay. You don't have to ask permission to have friends over, honey. This is your home. Emma, I know. I don't want her to think we're weird. Our house isn't as nice as hers. And we don't have a dad here. Jessica, Emma, real friends don't care about that stuff. And anyone who judges you based on your house or your family situation isn't someone you want to be friends with anyway. Sophia turned out to be a lovely kid, polite and funny, and completely unfazed by our circumstances. She and Emma would spend hours working on projects, talking, laughing. It was good to hear Emma sound like a kid again, carefree and silly. Ryan made friends too, mostly through karate. His sensei, a man named Mr. Phillips, was exactly what Ryan needed. Firm but kind, structured but encouraging. Ryan started going twice a week, and I could see his confidence growing with every class. Mr. Phillips. Mrs. Anderson, can I have a word? Jessica. Of course. Is everything okay with Ryan? Mr. Phillips. More than okay. He's doing great. I wanted to tell you that he told me a bit about your family situation. I want you to know that I've been where he is. My dad was, let's just say, not a good man. Martial arts saved my life, gave me an outlet, and taught me discipline. I'm going to make sure Ryan has the same experience. Jessica. Thank you. That means more than you know. Mr. Phillips. He's a good kid. He's going to be just fine. Watching Ryan in class, seeing him execute kicks and punches with increasing precision and power, I felt proud. He was learning that he was strong, that he could defend himself, that he didn't have to be afraid. Every belt he earned was a marker of his growth, his healing. My own therapy continued. Michael pushed me to examine uncomfortable truths about myself. Why had I chosen Mark? What patterns from my childhood was I repeating? How could I break those cycles so I didn't pass them to my children? Michael. Jessica, I want you to think about your relationship with your parents. What was their marriage like? Jessica. Combative. They fought all the time. My dad would yell, my mom would cry, then they'd make up and pretend everything was fine. It was exhausting to live through. Michael. And what role did you play in that dynamic? Jessica. I tried to be perfect. If I got good grades, if I cleaned my room, if I didn't cause any problems, I thought maybe they'd stop fighting. Obviously, it didn't work. They ended up divorcing when I was 16. Michael. So you learned early that your job was to manage other people's emotions, to prevent conflict even at the cost of your own needs. That pattern continued into your marriage. You thought if you could just be good enough, accommodating enough, Mark would be happy, and the family would be intact. Jessica. But I couldn't make him happy. Nothing I did was ever enough. Michael. Because his unhappiness wasn't about you. It was about him, his own unresolved issues, his own choice to handle stress through intimidation and control. You were never going to fix that by being more perfect. Jessica. So what do I do differently? Michael. You learn to recognize that you're not responsible for other people's emotions. You learn to set boundaries. You learn that your needs matter just as much as anyone else's. You teach your children these things by modeling them. It was hard work, therapy. Some sessions I left feeling worse than when I arrived, forced to confront parts of myself I'd rather ignore. But slowly, Gradually, I started to change. I started speaking up when something bothered me. I started saying no without excessive apologizing. I started taking up space. In the months that followed, I had to rebuild my life from scratch. I had to figure out how to pay bills on one income. I had to help my kids heal from trauma I hadn't protected them from. I had to go to my own therapy and face uncomfortable truths about codependency and conflict avoidance and how I'd lost myself trying to keep peace. The financial stress was constant and crushing. Every month felt like a balancing act. Mortgage, utilities, groceries, therapy copays, kids' activities. I made spreadsheets tracking every dollar. I learned to meal plan, to shop sales, to say no to anything that wasn't essential. The kids' birthday parties were smaller that year. Homemade cakes instead of bakery orders, games at home instead of expensive venues. Emma: Mom, you don't have to stress about my birthday. I don't need a big party. Jessica: You deserve to celebrate, honey. We'll figure it out. Emma: Honestly, I'd rather just have Sophia over and watch movies. That sounds more fun than a big party anyway. She was trying to make it easier on me, and I loved her for it, but it also broke my heart. She shouldn't have to worry about money at 12 years old. But maybe, like Ryan learning that love isn't about material things, Emma was learning resilience and gratitude. The support group continued to be essential. Every Tuesday night, I'd sit in that circle of women and share my struggles. They celebrated my victories with me and held me through the setbacks. When I got a small raise at work, they cheered like I'd won the lottery. When I had a panic attack at the grocery store because I ran into one of Mark's friends, they reminded me that healing isn't linear. Linda: You know what helped me? Keeping a journal of the progress. When you're in the middle of it, it's hard to see how far you've come, but when you can look back and see where you started, it helps. Jessica: I don't know if I want to remember all of this. Patricia: Not remembering the trauma, remembering your strength. Write down the moments where you stood up for yourself, where you made the hard choice, where you felt proud. Those are the moments that will carry you through the dark days. So I started journaling. Not every day, but when something significant happened. The day Emma laughed so hard at dinner that water came out of her nose. The day Ryan earned his yellow belt in karate. The day I negotiated a payment plan for Emma's braces without having a panic attack about the money. Small victories, but they added up. Meanwhile, Mark was supposedly doing his court-mandated programs. I only knew this because Diana kept me updated. He'd enrolled in a batterer's intervention program and was seeing a therapist. But I had no way of knowing if he was actually engaging with the process or just going through the motions. 3 months after the initial hearing, there was another court date to assess his progress. Diana prepared me beforehand. Diana: The program facilitator will give a report on Mark's participation. The therapist will provide an assessment. Mark's lawyer is going to push for supervised visitation to begin. You need to be prepared for that possibility. Jessica: The kids aren't ready to see him. Diana: I know, and the judge will take their wishes into account. But Jessica, at some point, unless Mark does something egregious, they're going to allow some form of contact. The courts believe in reunification when possible. Jessica: Even when the father terrorized his children? Diana: Even then. The system isn't perfect, but we'll fight for what's best for Emma and Ryan. I promise you that. In court, the program facilitator was professional, but not particularly encouraging. Facilitator: Mr. Anderson has attended all required sessions. However, his participation has been minimal. He tends to externalize blame, suggesting that his wife and children are too sensitive, that he was just trying to maintain discipline in his household. He has not demonstrated genuine insight into how his behavior affected his family. The therapist's report was similar. Therapist: Mr. Anderson presents as intelligent and articulate. However, there's a significant disconnect between his intellectual understanding of the issues and any genuine emotional processing. He can repeat back the concepts we discuss, but he doesn't seem to internalize them. He remains focused on being vindicated rather than on personal growth. Mark's lawyer tried to spin it positively. Gregory: Your Honor, my client has been compliant with every requirement the court set. He's attended every session. He's working with his therapist. The fact that this takes time, that change doesn't happen overnight, shouldn't be held against him. His children need their father, and he needs the opportunity to demonstrate his progress in person. Diana stood up, and I could see the steel in her spine. Diana: Your Honor, compliance is not the same as change. Mr. Anderson is checking boxes, not doing the internal work necessary to be safe for his children. Both Emma and Ryan have expressed that they are not ready to see their father. They're still in active therapy processing the trauma he caused. Forcing contact at this stage would be re-traumatizing. Judge Richardson looked tired. I wondered how many cases like ours she saw, how many broken families sat in her courtroom. Judge Richardson, I'm going to order a continuation of the protective order as is for another 90 days. Mr. Anderson, I want to see real progress, not just attendance. I want to see genuine insight and behavioral change. We'll reconvene in 3 months, and at that time, I'll make a determination about supervised visitation. It was a relief, but also exhausting. Another 90 days of limbo. Another 90 days of wondering if and when Mark would be forced back into our lives. The kids took the news differently. Emma was relieved. Ryan was confused. Ryan, why does Dad want to see us if we don't want to see him? Jessica, I think he loves you in his own way. But sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes people love you and still hurt you. Not because they mean to, but because they don't know how to do better. Ryan, that doesn't make sense. Jessica, I know. It's one of those things that's hard to understand until you're older. But what you need to know is that your feelings matter. Nobody is going to force you to see him before you're ready. School was going better for both kids. Emma's grades were good, and she'd joined the drama club. She got a small part in the fall production, a musical about high school students. Watching her rehearse, seeing her confidence on stage, I barely recognized the quiet, scared girl she'd been a year ago. Ryan's teacher called me for a parent-teacher conference. I went in nervous, expecting bad news. Ms. Fletcher, Mrs. Anderson, I wanted to talk to you about Ryan's progress this year. He's really blossomed. His reading has improved dramatically, and he's become more social with his classmates. Jessica, that's wonderful to hear. He's been through a lot this year. Ms. Fletcher, I know. He told me a bit about your family situation. I hope that's okay. I want you to know that if he ever needs extra support at school, I'm here for him. Jessica, thank you. That means everything. Ms. Fletcher, I also wanted to mention that he wrote a really beautiful essay for our unit on courage. He wrote about his mom, about how you protected him and his sister even when it was hard. He said you're his hero. I started crying right there in the classroom. I couldn't help it. After all the guilt, all the self-recrimination about not protecting them sooner, hearing that Ryan saw me as his hero broke something open in me. Jessica, can I see the essay? Ms. Fletcher, of course. She handed me a printed copy. Ryan's handwriting was still a bit wobbly, but the words were clear. My mom is the bravest person I know. When things were scary at home, she made sure me and my sister were safe. She had to make really hard choices, and sometimes I know she was scared too, but she did it anyway. That's what courage is. It's not being not scared. It's being scared and doing the right thing anyway. My mom does that every day. She goes to work and takes care of us and makes sure we have what we need. She tells us we're strong and smart and that we can do hard things. And I believe her because she shows us how. That's why my mom is my hero. I folded the paper carefully and put it in my purse like it was made of gold. Jessica, thank you for sharing this with me. Can I keep it? Ms. Fletcher, of course. I made a copy for our class anthology, but that's yours. Driving home, I kept thinking about Ryan's words. I'd spent so much time focusing on my failures that I'd lost sight of what I'd done right. I'd protected them. I'd believed them. I'd made the hard choice. And they saw that. They understood, in their way, that I loved them enough to blow up our whole life to keep them safe. That night at dinner, I hugged Ryan extra tight. Ryan, Mom, you're squishing me. Jessica, I know. I just love you so much. Emma, what's going on? Jessica, I had a conference with Ryan's teacher today. She showed me an essay he wrote about courage, about me. Emma, oh, the hero essay. Yeah, he let me read it. It was really good. Ryan, it's embarrassing, Mom. Don't make it weird. Jessica, too late. I'm already being weird about it. I'm going to frame it and hang it on the wall. Ryan, Mom, no. But he was smiling. We were all smiling. These moments, these normal, silly family moments, they were what I'd been fighting for. Not perfection, not the appearance of a perfect family, but the reality of a safe, loving home. The holidays that year were different. Thanksgiving was just the three of us and Rachel. No extended family, no trying to maintain appearances. We made turkey and stuffing and pumpkin pie, and we ate in our pajamas watching football. It was simple and peaceful, and exactly what we needed. Christmas was harder. The kids were used to bigger celebrations, more presents. I'd set aside money throughout the fall, but it still wasn't enough for the kind of Christmas we used to have. I stressed about it for weeks. Rachel, Jess, the kids don't need a pile of presents. They need stability and love. You're already giving them that. Jessica, but I want them to have a good Christmas. They've been through so much. Rachel, then make it good in ways that don't cost money. Make traditions. Do activities together. The memories matter more than the stuff. She was right. So I shifted my focus. We made Christmas cookies together, decorating them with terrible frosting jobs and way too many sprinkles. We drove around looking at Christmas lights, judging people's decorations, and making up stories about the families who lived there. We watched Christmas movies and drank hot chocolate. On Christmas morning, there were fewer presents under the tree, but they were thoughtful, chosen with care. Emma, Mom, I know money is tight. Thank you for still making Christmas special. Jessica, you two are what makes everything special. The rest is just details. But privately later, after the kids were in bed and Rachel had gone home, I let myself cry. Not because Christmas had been bad, it had been lovely, but because I mourned what we'd lost. The financial security, the intact family unit, the ease of not having to count every dollar. I let myself grieve for a few minutes, and then I wiped my face and reminded myself what we'd gained. Safety, peace, the ability to breathe in our own home. That was worth more than any amount of money or any picture-perfect family portrait. The new year brought new challenges. Mark's next court date was in January, and this time, the reports were slightly better. He'd started engaging more in his therapy, asking questions in his group sessions, showing some insight. His lawyer pushed again for supervised visitation. Gregory, Your Honor, my client has been working diligently on his recovery. He's made significant progress. He understands now how his behavior affected his family. He's ready to begin rebuilding those relationships under appropriate supervision. Diana countered with caution. Diana, Your Honor, while Mr. Anderson may be showing some progress, that doesn't mean the children are ready. Emma has explicitly stated she's not prepared to see her father. Ryan is ambivalent but follows his sister's lead. Forcing contact now could undermine all the therapeutic progress they've made. The judge turned to me. Judge Richardson, Mrs. Anderson, what are your thoughts? Jessica, I think my children's feelings should be the priority. If they're not ready, they're not ready. Maybe if Mark continues his progress, in a few more months, they'll feel differently. But right now, asking them to see him feels like it would undo all the healing they've done. Judge Richardson, I appreciate your perspective. However, I also have to consider the rights of the father to have a relationship with his children, provided he's not a danger to them. Here's what I'm going to order. I want both children to have sessions with Dr. Brennan specifically focused on their feelings about their father and the possibility of visitation. Dr. Brennan will provide a recommendation to the court. We'll reconvene in 60 days to review that recommendation. It was a compromise, which meant nobody was fully happy. But it bought us more time, and it put the decision in the hands of a professional who knew the kids and had their best interests at heart. Dr. Brennan approached the sessions carefully. She didn't push Emma or Ryan, just created space for them to explore their feelings. Dr. Brennan, Emma, can you tell me what you're feeling when you think about seeing your dad? Emma, scared, and guilty for being scared, because he's my dad, and I should want to see him, right? But I don't. I remember how he made me feel, like I was always doing something wrong, like I could never be good enough, and I don't want to feel that way again. Dr. Brennan, those feelings are completely valid. You're not obligated to want a relationship with someone who hurt you, even if that person is your father. What would it take for you to feel safe seeing him? Emma, I don't know. Maybe if I knew he'd really changed, not just said he'd changed. But how can you ever really know that? Dr. Brennan, that's a very mature question. The truth is, you can't know for certain. But you can wait until you feel ready, until you feel strong enough to set boundaries if you need to. There's no rush. Ryan's sessions were different. He was more concrete in his thinking. Ryan, if I see Dad, will he yell at me? Dr. Brennan, the visitation would be supervised, which means another adult would be there the whole time. If your dad started to yell or act inappropriately, the visit would end immediately. Ryan, what if he's nice during the visit but then gets mad later? Dr. Brennan, he wouldn't be able to contact you outside of supervised visits. You'd still be protected by the court order. Ryan, I don't know. Maybe I'd see him if Emma was there too, but I don't want to go alone. Dr. Brennan's recommendation to the court was thoughtful and thorough. She suggested that visitation begin only if both children agreed, that the visits be supervised by a neutral professional, that they start with very short sessions and build gradually, and that either child could terminate a visit at any time if they felt uncomfortable. The judge accepted the recommendations with one addition. Before visitation could begin, Mark would have to meet with Dr. Brennan for an assessment. She would determine if he was genuinely ready to have appropriate contact with his children. That meeting happened in February. Dr. Brennan spent 2 hours with Mark, assessing his understanding of what he'd done, his ability to take responsibility, his capacity for empathy. Afterward, she called me. Dr. Brennan. Jessica, I met with Mark today. I want to be honest with you. He's made progress, but it's superficial. He can talk about his behavior intellectually, but there's still a fundamental lack of emotional insight. He believes he understands what he did wrong, but when pressed, he still minimizes and deflects. Jessica, so you're not recommending visitation? Dr. Brennan, not yet. I told him that he needs to continue his individual therapy with a focus on genuine emotional processing, not just cognitive understanding. I recommended he write letters to Emma and Ryan, not to send, but as a therapeutic exercise to help him truly grasp the impact of his actions. I want to see him again in 90 days. Jessica, how did he take that? Dr. Brennan, not well. He became defensive, said I was biased against him, that everyone was conspiring to keep him from his children, which actually proved my point. He still sees himself as the victim in this situation. Jessica, thank you for being thorough, for protecting my kids. Dr. Brennan, it's my job, but more than that, it's the right thing to do. Those children have been through enough. They don't need to be re-traumatized by forced contact with someone who hasn't truly changed. When I told Emma and Ryan about Dr. Brennan's decision, their relief was palpable. Emma, so we don't have to see him? Jessica, not right now. Dr. Brennan wants him to do more work first. She's protecting you, making sure he's really ready before any visits happen. Ryan, good. I wasn't ready anyway. But later that night, I found Emma crying in her room. Jessica, honey, what's wrong? I thought you'd be happy about the decision. Emma, I am. But I'm also sad. I wish my dad was different. I wish he could just be normal and safe and we could have a regular family. Why can't he just fix himself? Jessica, oh, sweetheart. I wish I had a good answer for that. Sometimes people can't or won't change, even when they have every reason to. It's not your fault. It's not because you're not worth changing for. It's because he has to want it for himself, and maybe he's not there yet. Emma, will he ever get there? Jessica, I don't know. I hope so, for everyone's sake. But we can't wait around for him to change. We have to live our lives, be happy, move forward. Maybe someday he'll catch up. Maybe he won't. Either way, we're going to be okay. Emma, I hate that this is my life. I hate that my family is broken. Jessica, I know. I hate it too. But Emma, look at what we've built. We're safe. We're happy most days. We have people who love us. That's not nothing. In fact, that's everything. She cried harder, and I held her, letting her grieve for the father she wished she had, for the family she thought she'd have. Grief is part of healing. You have to mourn what you lost before you can fully embrace what you have. Spring came slowly that year. The snow melted, revealing brown grass and bare trees that gradually turned green. It felt symbolic, like nature was showing us that renewal is possible, that life continues even after the harshest winters. Emma's drama production happened in April. She played a small but important role, and she was brilliant. Watching her on stage, confident and radiant, I felt a swell of pride so intense it nearly choked me. Rachel came for the show, and afterward, we took Emma out for ice cream even though it was barely 50 degrees outside. Rachel, you were amazing, Emma. Truly talented. Emma, thanks, Aunt Rachel. I was so nervous I thought I'd throw up, but once I got on stage, it all just clicked. Jessica, that's courage, honey. Doing the thing even when you're terrified. Emma, like you do every day, Mom. Jessica, we all do. It's the family superpower. Ryan's karate tournament was in May. He was competing at his belt level against other kids from different dojos. I'd never seen him so focused, so determined. When his name was called, he bowed to his opponent and to the judges, then executed his kata with precision and power. He didn't win first place, but he got third, and the grin on his face when they put the bronze medal around his neck was worth everything. Mr. Phillips, he's come so far. When he started, he was timid, unsure. Now look at him. That's what happens when a kid feels safe and supported. Jessica, thank you for being part of that, for giving him this space to grow. Mr. Phillips, it's been my pleasure. Ryan's a special kid. Work was going well too. I'd been promoted to senior coordinator, which came with a modest raise and more responsibility. It wasn't my dream job, but it was stable, and my boss valued me. That was enough. One afternoon in June, almost a year since Tom had found the hiding place, I got a call from Diana. Diana, Jessica, I have news. Mark's lawyer contacted me. Mark wants to withdraw his petition for visitation. He's moving out of state for a job opportunity. He says he'll continue paying child support, but he's not going to pursue contact with the kids right now. Jessica, he's leaving? Just like that? Diana, apparently so. The job is in Arizona, starts next month. His lawyer framed it as Mark giving the kids space to heal, but between you and me, I think he's just tired of the court process and the scrutiny. Jessica, how do I tell Emma and Ryan? Diana, gently, honestly, let them have their feelings about it, whatever those feelings are. That night after dinner, I sat both kids down. Jessica, I got some news today about your dad. He's taking a job in Arizona, so he's moving away. He says he's not going to try for visitation right now. Emma, so he's just leaving? He's giving up on us? Jessica, I don't think it's about giving up on you. I think maybe he realized he wasn't ready to be the dad you need, and rather than keep putting you through the court process, he's stepping back. Ryan, is he coming back? Jessica, I don't know, buddy. Maybe someday. Or maybe this is just how things are going to be. Emma, I thought I'd feel happy about this, but I just feel kind of empty. Jessica, that's normal. It's okay to have mixed feelings. You can be relieved and disappointed at the same time. You can be glad you don't have to see him and also sad that he's choosing to leave. All of that is valid. Ryan, I think I'm just relieved. Does that make me bad? Jessica, absolutely not. Your feelings are yours, and they're all okay. That night, after the kids were in bed, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the back porch. The yard needed mowing, the fence needed painting, there were 100 things that needed doing. But in that moment, I just sat and breathed and felt the weight of the last year settle over me. We'd survived. More than survived, we'd started to thrive. My kids were healing, growing, becoming themselves without fear holding them back. I was learning who I was outside of my marriage, outside of my role as peacekeeper and excuse-maker. We were building something new, something real, something ours. The divorce was finalized in July, exactly 1 year and 1 month after Tom found that hiding place. I sat in the courtroom feeling nothing but relief. The judge granted me primary custody with no visitation schedule. Mark would pay child support and maintain health insurance. He was allowed to contact the children by letter or email, but they were not obligated to respond. Mark didn't attend the hearing. He was already in Arizona, starting his new life. Part of me wondered if he ever thought about us, if he ever regretted the choices he'd made. But mostly, I didn't think about him at all. He'd become a chapter in our story, not the whole book. Diana hugged me outside the courtroom. Diana, you did it. You got yourself and your kids to safety. Be proud of that. Jessica, I am. Mostly, I'm just grateful. To you, to Dr. Brennan, to everyone who helped us. Diana, you helped yourself. You made the hard choices. That's all you. But slowly, things got better. Emma started talking again, really talking, telling me about her day and her friends and her worries. Ryan stopped walking on eggshells, stopped making himself small. He laughed more, played more, acted like a kid again. The house felt lighter without the constant tension, without wondering what mood Mark would be in when he got home. Rachel visited often, and I started reconnecting with old friends I'd let drift away. I realized how isolated I'd become, how much of my identity had been wrapped up in being Mark's wife, in maintaining the appearance of a perfect family. 6 months after that day with Tom the repairman, I filed for divorce. Mark fought it, of course, but the evidence was clear. The kids didn't want to see him. He'd completed his anger management classes but showed no real change in his attitude. He blamed everyone but himself. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in April. I sat in the courtroom and felt nothing but relief. The judge granted me primary custody with supervised visitation for Mark. He'd have to continue therapy and maintain stable housing before unsupervised visits could be considered. Emma and Ryan were in school when I got the news. I picked them up that afternoon and we went out for ice cream even though it was barely 60 degrees outside. Ryan, Mom, why are we getting ice cream on a Tuesday? Jessica, because the divorce is final. We're officially done with that chapter. Emma, does that mean we don't have to see Dad? Jessica, you'll see him sometimes with supervision, but you don't have to see him if you don't want to. The judge said you're old enough to have a say. Emma, I don't want to. Not yet, anyway. Maybe someday. But not now. Ryan, me neither. He still scares me. Jessica, That's okay. You don't have to see anyone who scares you. Your feelings are valid. We sat there eating ice cream, the three of us, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the desperate, grasping hope that things would go back to how they used to be, but real hope. Grounded hope. The kind that comes from knowing you've survived something hard and come out stronger. A year after Tom found that hiding space in the basement, I renovated it. I cleaned out all the old storage, painted the walls, put in good lighting. I turned it into a family room, a place where the kids could hang out with friends, where we could watch movies together. I wanted to take that space that had represented fear and hiding and transform it into something good. The kids helped me choose paint colors and furniture. Emma picked out a bright yellow for one wall. Ryan wanted beanbag chairs. We hung string lights and put up shelves for games and books. When it was finished, we had a little party. Just the three of us and Rachel and a few close friends. Tom, I hope you don't mind, I brought a housewarming gift. I turned around, surprised. Tom was standing there with a wrapped package, looking a bit sheepish. I'd called him a few weeks earlier to thank him, to tell him that finding that space had saved my kids. He'd insisted he just did what anyone would do, but I knew better. Jessica, Tom, you didn't have to come, but I'm so glad you did. Tom, I've been thinking about you folks, wondering how you were doing. I'm glad to see you're okay. Emma, we're better than okay. We're actually good. Tom, that's what I like to hear. This is for you, young lady. He handed the package to Emma. She unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a leather-bound journal, much nicer than the purple notebook that had been evidence in our case. Tom, for your thoughts. The good ones, the bad ones, all of them. Writing things down, it helps sometimes. Emma, thank you. I'll use it, I promise. After everyone left that night, I tucked the kids into bed. They were both in their own rooms now, feeling safe enough to sleep alone again. I kissed Ryan goodnight first. Ryan, Mom, I'm glad Tom found our hiding place. Jessica, me too, buddy. Me too. Ryan, are we always going to be okay now? Jessica, I can't promise that nothing bad will ever happen. Life has hard parts. But I can promise that I'll always protect you, that you'll always be safe to tell me the truth, and that we'll handle hard things together. And yeah, I think we're going to be okay. I went to Emma's room next. She was already in bed, but she wasn't asleep. She was writing in the journal Tom had given her. Jessica, what are you writing about? Emma, about today. About how it feels to not be scared anymore. Is that weird? Jessica, not at all. I think that's exactly what you should be writing about. Emma, Mom, can I tell you something? Jessica, always. Emma, I used to be so angry at you, for not seeing what was happening, for making excuses for Dad. But I'm not angry anymore. I think you were scared too, just in a different way. Jessica, I was. I was scared of admitting that I'd made a mistake marrying him, scared of being alone, scared of what people would think. But mostly I was scared of change. And all that fear nearly cost me what matters most, which is you and your brother. Emma, but you changed. When it mattered, you chose us. Jessica, I should have chosen you sooner. But yes, when I finally saw clearly, I chose you. And I'll keep choosing you every single day. Emma, I know, I can feel it. The whole house feels different now, like we can breathe. She was right. The house did feel different. Lighter, freer. There was still work to do. We were all in therapy, working through trauma and learning healthy communication. Money was tight, and I'd had to go back to work full-time. The kids still had moments where they struggled, where the fear crept back in, but we were healing. Together. I went downstairs to the new family room and sat on one of the beanbag chairs Ryan had picked out. I thought about that morning when Tom had come running up from the basement, about how my first instinct had been to deny, to explain it away. But I hadn't. I'd listened. I'd acted. I'd done the hard thing. That's the thing about change. It doesn't happen all at once. It's not one big moment where everything suddenly makes sense. It's 1,000 small moments where you choose differently than you did before. It's every time you listen instead of dismiss. Every time you act instead of freeze. Every time you choose the hard right thing instead of the easy wrong thing. Looking back now, I can see how lost I was. I'd been sleepwalking through my life, so focused on keeping peace that I'd forgotten what I was supposed to be keeping peace for. My children had created a hiding place because their own home didn't feel safe, and I'd been too caught up in my own denial to see it. But here's what I learned, what I'm still learning. It's never too late to change. It's never too late to start seeing clearly, to start listening, to start protecting the people who need you most. Yes, I wish I'd acted sooner. Yes, I carry guilt about the time I lost, the fear my children felt, but I can't change the past. All I can do is be better today than I was yesterday. The next morning, I woke up early and made pancakes. Real pancakes, from scratch, not from a box. The kids came downstairs in their pajamas, and we sat at the kitchen table together. No tension, no walking on eggshells, just us eating pancakes, making plans for the day. Emma, can we go to the park today? It's supposed to be nice out. Jessica, absolutely. And maybe we can pick up some flowers for the garden on the way home. Ryan, can I invite Danny? He wants to see our new basement. Jessica, of course. The more the merrier. It was such a simple moment. Just a family breakfast on a Saturday morning, but it felt profound because it was ours, freely and fully ours, without fear coloring everything. Later that day at the park, I sat on a bench watching Emma push Ryan on the swings. They were laughing, racing to see who could swing higher. Other parents were scattered around the playground. I recognized a few from school events, and they waved. I waved back. One woman, Sarah, came over and sat next to me. We'd talked a few times at school pickup, but never more than surface-level pleasantries. Sarah, your kids look happy. Jessica, they are. We all are. Finally. Sarah, I heard you got divorced. I'm sorry. Jessica, thank you. But honestly, it was the best thing I could have done. For all of us. Sarah, that's brave. I admire that. There was something in her tone, a wistfulness that made me look at her more carefully. She had that same exhausted look I'd had, that same forced smile. Jessica, are you okay? Sarah, yeah. Yeah, I'm fine. Just, married life. It's not always easy. Jessica, no, it's not. But Sarah, it also shouldn't be scary. It shouldn't make you feel small or wrong or like you're walking on eggshells. She looked startled, then her eyes filled with tears. Sarah, how did you know? Jessica, because I've been there, and I almost waited too long to get out. If you ever need someone to talk to, someone who understands, I'm here. Sarah, thank you. I might take you up on that. She wiped her eyes and stood up, called to her kids that it was time to go. But before she left, she squeezed my hand. A moment of connection, of understanding. Maybe I could help someone else see what I'd been blind to for so long. Maybe my experience, as painful as it was, could be useful. That night, after the kids were in bed, I sat in the living room with a cup of tea and thought about everything that had changed. A year ago, I'd been miserable but pretending to be fine. Now I was actually fine, genuinely okay, maybe for the first time in years. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been court dates and lawyer fees and moments where I'd questioned everything. There had been nights where I'd cried myself to sleep, wondering if I'd made the right choice, if I was destroying my family. There had been times when Mark had tried to manipulate me into coming back, promising he'd changed, blaming me for giving up too easily. But every time I doubted myself, I'd thought about Emma and Ryan hiding in that basement. I'd thought about the fear in their eyes, the way they'd flinched at loud noises, the way they'd made themselves small and quiet to avoid setting off their father's anger. And I knew, without question, that I'd made the right choice. The thing is, leaving wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter. I had to relearn who I was outside of my marriage. I had to rebuild my confidence, my sense of self. I had to learn how to be a single parent, how to manage finances on my own, how to fix things around the house without help. But I also got to rediscover parts of myself I'd lost. I started taking art classes at the community center, something I'd loved in college but had given up. I reconnected with old friends. I laughed more. I slept better. I stopped feeling like I was constantly bracing for the next explosion. And my kids thrived. Emma joined the drama club at school and discovered she loved performing. Ryan started taking karate lessons and found confidence in his body, in his ability to defend himself if needed. They both knew, deeply knew, that they were safe and loved and heard. 3 months later, Mark called. It was the first time I'd spoken to him since the divorce was finalized. His voice sounded different. Smaller, maybe. Or perhaps I was just hearing him without the filter of fear and obligation. Mark, Jess, I've been in therapy. Real therapy, not just the court-ordered stuff. And I'm starting to see things I didn't see before. How I treated you, how I treated the kids. I'm not calling to ask you to take me back. I know that's not going to happen. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Jessica, I appreciate that, Mark. I really do. But I need you to understand something. Sorry isn't enough. Actions are what matter. If you want a relationship with Emma and Ryan someday, You need to keep doing the work. You need to actually change, not just say you will. Mark, I know. I'm trying. I really am. Can you tell them that? Can you tell them I'm working on being better? Jessica, I'll tell them. But Mark, they get to decide if and when they're ready to have you in their lives. You can't force it. Mark, I understand. And Jess, for what it's worth, you're a good mom. Better than I deserved. Jessica, I'm trying to be. That's all any of us can do. Try to be better than we were yesterday. After I hung up, I didn't feel angry or vindicated or even relieved. I just felt sad. Sad for the time we'd wasted. Sad for the man Mark could have been if he'd gotten help sooner. Sad for my kids who deserved better from their father. But I also felt grateful. Grateful that we'd gotten out. Grateful that we were safe. Grateful that we had the chance to heal. Emma came downstairs, unable to sleep. Emma, who are you talking to? Jessica, your dad. He called to apologize. Emma, do you believe him? Jessica, I think he's starting to understand what he did wrong. Whether that translates into real change, I don't know. But that's not our problem anymore. We're okay. You and me and Ryan. That's what matters. Emma, I don't think I'm ready to talk to him yet. Jessica, that's okay. You don't have to be. You get to decide what's right for you, on your timeline. Emma, thanks, Mom, for listening, for believing us, for choosing us. Jessica, always. I'll always choose you. Now, sitting here 2 years after Tom found that hiding place, I can see how far we've come. Emma is 12 and thriving, confident and vocal and unafraid to take up space. Ryan is 10 and silly and creative, finally allowed to be a kid without fear. And me, I'm learning how to be whole on my own, how to be strong without needing to be hard, how to be vulnerable without being weak. The house is filled with laughter now. Friends come over. We have game nights and movie marathons. We talk about hard things without fear. When Emma gets frustrated, she doesn't hide it. When Ryan is sad, he cries openly. We're learning together how to have healthy emotions, healthy relationships, healthy boundaries. I still think about that Thursday morning sometimes, about how close we came to continuing in that cycle. If Tom hadn't been thorough, if he'd just fixed the furnace and left, we might have kept going. Emma and Ryan might have kept hiding. Things might have escalated. Someone might have gotten seriously hurt. But that's not what happened. Tom found the hiding place. I made the hard choice. We got out. We healed. And now we're building something new. Something better. Something real. That's the thing about rock bottom. It gives you a solid foundation to build on. Once you've survived the worst, once you've faced the truth and come out the other side, you know what you're capable of. You know you're stronger than you thought. You know you can handle hard things. And maybe that's the lesson in all of this. Maybe the point isn't to have a perfect life where nothing bad ever happens. Maybe the point is to be brave enough to face the truth when things are bad, to make hard choices, to protect what matters most, even when it costs you everything else. I look at my kids now and I see resilience. I see strength. I see children who know their voice matters, who know they deserve to be safe, who know that love should never come with fear attached. And I know that even though I failed them for a while, even though I was blind when I should have been seeing, I'm doing right by them now. We're doing right by each other. The basement family room has become the heart of our home. It's where we gather, where friends congregate, where life happens. Every time I go down there, I think about what it used to represent. Fear, hiding, survival. And I look at what it is now. Joy, connection, healing. That transformation, from a hiding place to a gathering place, mirrors our own journey. We're not hiding anymore. We're living, fully and freely, without apology. And that, more than anything, is what I wanted to give my children. The freedom to exist without fear. The right to be themselves without shrinking. The security of knowing they're loved unconditionally, protected fiercely, and believed completely. So yes, that Thursday morning divided my life into before and after. Before, when I was blind and scared and stuck. After, when I finally opened my eyes and found the courage to change. And while the journey has been hard, while there have been moments where I wanted to give up, I wouldn't go back. Not for anything. Because we're free now. We're safe now. We're healing now. And that's worth every hard moment, every difficult choice, every sacrifice. My children don't have to hide anymore. And neither do I.